Teslas. You either love them or you hate them. There really doesn't seem to be a middle ground. And that's what we're going to be looking at in today's podcast. Teslas, are they going to benefit us or are they the fall of mankind? So, with that, sit back, relax, and enjoy because this is the DemonView Podcast.
If you want to see life from a different perspective, then sit back, relax, and enjoy. This is the DemonView Podcast.
Hi there, welcome back to the channel, and I do appreciate you tuning in. Now, for those of you who are unfamiliar with the podcast, this is something designed that you can listen to while you drive along in your car. Hopefully not distracted, eating sandwiches or drinking hot coffee, waiting to spill it all over your lap or spit it out onto your window when I say something truly unbelievable. But honestly, folks, this is just one of those conversations that sprang to mind recently when I had mentioned the word Tesla to somebody, and that person couldn't wait to tell me, oh my god, I absolutely hate Tesla cars. Now, it's interesting because there seems to be this whole attitude that people either love Teslas or they hate Teslas. There doesn't seem to be a middle ground, and that's what I wanted to talk about today, because I like Teslas. I kind of really do like them. However, there's a couple of things that we need to keep in mind before we start this off. So one of the first things we have to keep in mind is that the Tesla is a vehicle. It is a car and now a rather weird looking truck, and it is not the person who founded the company and it's not the person who runs the company. I mean, if that was the case, then yeah, Tesla could go and stick themselves where the sun doesn't shine. But no, a Tesla is a vehicle, and as far as I'm concerned, Mr. Elon Musk, well, he's a dick. He well and truly is. He's a megalomaniac, egomaniac, and a psychopath to boot. But that's just my opinion. However, the vehicles themselves I do have great respect for, and we're going to kind of look at this whole thing about self-driving cars because that's the main kind of advantage of a Tesla. Now, word of warning here, because this is my opinion, even Tesla themselves state that the vehicle is not fully self-driving. It is supposed to be a driving aid, even though some of their advertisements kind of like say, no, it's fully self-driving. And that's, you know, their legal issue to deal with. But yeah, we're going to talk about this whole thing from the point of self-driving cars. One of the things I kind of do watch on a regular basis on YouTube is these bad driving videos. Now, anyone that knows me knows that I go around with dash cams in all my vehicles. I fully recommend you have one. I also stick the GoPros on my own vehicles just because if something does happen, I obviously want it in much higher, clearer quality than your standard dash camera. But having said that, a dash cam is an excellent thing to have. It kind of prevents that whole thing of it's my word against theirs. Once you have it on video, case is settled. So watching all these, you know, bad driver videos, it really is car crash television, if you'll pardon the pun. But yeah, there are an increasing number of bad drivers out there, absolutely terrible drivers. And there seems to be this whole thing as well that the drivers that are out there, some of them are unlicensed and some of them don't even have insurance. Now, we're not going to get into the whole insurance thing because I think that would be a separate podcast in itself. But we see people doing stupid things, or if they are involved in a car accident, you see them overreacting, overcorrecting, and therefore causing a worse accident when they lose control of their vehicles. And that's where the whole thing about self-driving vehicles comes in. Yes, I have seen some very impressive videos where Teslas themselves have been involved in accidents, you know, mostly not caused by their own drivers, but the automatic driving systems did take over and managed to keep the car under control. So if somebody got sideswiped, in some videos you'll actually see normal everyday cars getting sideswiped and they just overcorrect, launch themselves sideways, hit about 3 other vehicles on the way towards the barrier. Whereas I've seen a Tesla have the same thing happen and the self-driving takes over, steers the car properly, sends it to the side of the road and then stops the vehicle safely. And for me, that's pretty impressive, but it's not the only impressive thing I've seen. And for me, this brings up the debatable point about whether or not we should have self-driving cars. I mean, yes, people have poor driving skills. I don't think that we can deny that. There are some great drivers out there, there are some fantastic drivers out there, but there are also some absolutely terrible drivers out there, really. And I think it looks like the problem's only increasing. I know that since COVID came down and they kind of rolled back, well, here's who we're going to arrest, not arrest, pull over, that type of thing. Because of that, I'm seeing cars that are speeding constantly, weaving in and out of traffic because they have no fear whatsoever of being pulled over, and the driving skills of these people are just absolutely terrible. And this, for me, is a debate about the whole self-driving car thing. I mean, if we have self-driving cars, then yes, these are cars that are going to be able to navigate traffic successfully and safely. They won't drive up the ass of the car in front because they'll say that's not enough braking distance, so we're going to hang back. Yes, you can override it, but, in that case, it would be great to have something that sends that information straight to your insurance company, if you have it. But, it's absolutely great to actually think that there's cars out there that could actually drive themselves in a safe manner. Now, the downside of this is that if we have a car that's doing all the driving, are people going to be incapable of learning how to safely drive themselves? I mean, let's take a look at one of the ads recently on TV for, I think it was a Buick, and it had self-reverse parking. You pull up beside a parking space, you hit a button, the car immediately starts to park itself safely in that space. Meanwhile, the passengers are making the quip of, wow, I thought you hate reverse parking. Well, the fact is they still do because they're totally incapable of it because the car is doing it for them. I mean, part of the driving instruction I got, when I was younger was how to actually reverse into a parking space. So if you have an automated system doing this for people, someday that automated system might fail, it might not work, in which case, will that person be able to actually reverse park their own vehicle, or will they cause disasters while trying to do so? So, I mean, there's this whole thing that if you give people more automatic or automated aids to help with their driving, the less successful a driver they're going to be because they don't actually have the experience needed to drive themselves. And I don't think we can deny that. Hey, take a look at the microwave. We gave a device to people that could instantly heat these prepackaged meals, and as a result, people didn't have to learn how to cook anymore, and a lot of people can't even do that. I mean, it's kind of amazing to me when I hear people that just eat out constantly the whole time or use prepackaged meals they throw in the microwave and they just don't know the basic kind of way to cook anything. So yeah, it's like that with driving self-driving vehicles. That if you give people these automated processes or autonomous vehicles, then they're just not going to have the skills to actually properly drive the vehicles themselves. So immediately this sounds like a bad thing, right? Well, not exactly. Like I said, there's many drivers out there on the road already who don't have automated cars, and they're absolutely terrible at driving. I mean, there's a difference in attitudes between people who drive now and people who used to drive back then. God, I'm showing my age here. For me, driving is a responsibility. If you are driving a car, you have to be driving responsibly and make sure that you are responsible for your car's upkeep. It's got tires on it with proper thread on it. It's got oil in the engine. It's got fuel in the gas tank. But people seem to have this thing, no, it's my right to drive, so I don't even have to know how to drive. I don't have to know how to maintain my vehicle, and I should just be able to get out there on the road as I like. And it's that kind of impulsiveness and short-sightedness that kind of really causes all these accidents. So therefore, how do we combat this? Well, by kind of taking that out of their hands, so to speak, and having autonomous driving vehicles. I mean, how many people have been driving along in the snow and ice and you've seen a car in front of you just suddenly lose it for what appears to be no good reason except for poor driving skills? They could be going around a corner, just go into it too fast, and that's it, they're in a ditch or maybe even heading towards another vehicle. Whereas if you have a self-driving system that actually realizes what the surrounding temperature is, what the road conditions are like, can actually sense if it's losing grip on any one of the four wheels immediately, and then decides to slow down, not press the brakes and slam them on, but keeps those wheels rotating so it can actually maintain some semblance of grip and control. Things that otherwise people would have to have experience or have to go on courses to be able to learn how to brake like this or steer like this once you've lost control of your vehicle. And taking that out of their hands, putting it into an autonomous vehicle, that just seems to be a really good idea. If people are going to drive poorly anyway, then yes, we need to do something about it, and autonomous vehicles might be the way to go. However, there are still some downsides. Now, we know from seeing news stories that Tesla really don't have it down at the moment. There have been accidents involving the autonomous driving systems, or so the people who have been driving those cars have claimed. But if you look closely at them, you'll see that that's not always the case. I mean, Tesla have this thing with the self-driving systems that you have to have both hands on the steering wheel at all times, and the steering wheel actually does sense whether or not you actually have your hands there. However, third-party suppliers came up with these weights that you can hang on the steering wheel to mimic the weight of the human hands to bypass those safety systems, and that's when crashes happen. So when you have a safety system in a car and you bypass it, I don't think it's the car's fault. I think that's entirely on you. You also have things like, for instance, radar sensors on cars. Now, these radars are actually used to judge the distance between you and the vehicle in front. It's not an optical system, it actually uses just good old-fashioned radar. The thing is, since these are usually integrated into the bumper, if you have a dirty bumper on your car, that dirt that's actually lodged over the sensors can interfere with these readings. And that's the same for lane assist as well. Usually, if there's like a side collision detection, it's using the same systems. And even the optical systems that do use cameras, again, those cameras have to be kept clean. Now, I don't know about you, but I've seen God knows how many filthy cars on the road, and I've even gotten into cars where you can barely see through the front windscreen due to the amount of dirt and grime on the inside. So what are those cameras going to be like? What are those radar sensors going to be like? Are people going to be keeping them clean, or are they going to have the whole approach of, well, it's too much bother, so I'm just not going to bother washing my car? And, I think that's going to be very likely to happen. So I do think that we need automated systems, automated cars out there, but we have to do something about making it safer for people to use and to rely on. There also needs to be a kind of like a manual component to all of this. People should be able to know the basics of driving. However, look at, I'm going a bit dark here, but look at drink driving accidents. How many of those could be prevented if people had an automated car that they could get into and the car could take them places? Because let's face it, these people could have easily taken an Uber, they could have taken a taxi, but instead they decided to get in their vehicles, drive, cause a crash, whatever. So would these have been prevented by getting into an automated vehicle that could have gotten them safely to their destination? But like I said, the down point side of this right now is that you have to be able to sit in that driver's seat with both hands on the wheel, and if you're drunk, you may not be able to do that safely. And also think about people in very rural areas where taxis and buses may not be an exact option. It doesn't excuse them making the poor choice of getting into a vehicle and trying to operate it, but with an automated vehicle, would it significantly reduce the chances of this happening? So, I don't have all the answers, to tell you the God's honest truth, but I do think it's something that we should not be kind of dismissing just based on the owner of a company or, unfortunately, most of the people that seems to drive those Tesla cars, because I'm sure you've never seen a Tesla driver behaving badly. Horse pucky, we've seen plenty of them. So, yeah, I do believe there should be automated driving cars, and I do rather like Teslas, because what I've seen in car crash videos, how Tesla's automated systems handle the cars when being involved in a crash, yeah, I think it's much safer than having a person who just manually controls the car, unless they're a professional stunt driver or racing car driver, which they usually aren't. They kind of just think that they are. So if you've been out there driving, behind a Tesla, or you've actually driven in the snow and ice and you've seen people lose it, ask yourself that question. If that car had been automated, if it had been programmed by engineers, here's what you do in a snow and ice situation, do you honestly think it would have been safer for you and safer for other road users? Because at the end of the day, that's what it's really all about. You just want to be out there on the roads and be safe while you're driving. So folks, I hope you found this interesting, and if you do, make sure you listen to the next podcast, and in the meantime, drive safe.
If you want to see life from a different perspective, then sit back, relax, and enjoy. This is the DemonView Podcast.